Have you ever had the thought that, hey, I don't really want to play this game anymore? And by this game, I mean life. And not the board game life, but real life, you know? This is a thought I've had in the past, and it's a topic that I want to try to address in this video. I do want to put it out there that I'm trying to do this all in one take, keeping it raw, light on the editing, and I've never done content like this before. I've done content, as I'm sure I might mention again in the later parts of the video, but it's a bit challenging. That is what I'm finding out. But anyways, in the background, you're going to be watching me play Megabonk. I'm doing it live as just something to hopefully have some fun with and just keep things flowing, and also just for you guys to watch too as well. But yeah, the topic, right? Do you ever get that feeling? I think you probably have. If you've seen, or if you clicked on the video rather, you probably want to hear some thoughts about it. I again definitely have had this in the past, and it's understandable, right? Life, not to be cheesy, obviously has its ups and downs, but it does have quite a lot of downs. And I feel like as you become an adult, I am 22 years old, so I'm kind of transitioning into that adult life. You start really wondering, what is this whole life thing really about? You know, obviously you start dealing with things like bills. You know, you gotta keep yourself alive, keep yourself fed. And, you know, if you choose to have wife, kids, girlfriend, whatever it is, maybe you're keeping other people alive as well. And, you know, you start wondering, like, is this all worth the effort? What is the light at the end of the tunnel? And a bunch of other, a little bit, I guess, cynical thoughts or pessimistic thoughts. But I think they're very real. They are very real. I feel like I need to explain my situation for this video to make sense again. Or I think I said this. I am 22 years old, graduated, going on 5 years. I guess it's basically just 4 years has passed. Either way, it's been a while, and they don't lie to you when they say that time starts moving quick after school. It is actually kind of scary, but I try not to dwell on it too much. But yeah, I've been graduated for a while. In high school, I didn't necessarily excel at anything. I was kind of just like the saying where they say, you know, the jack of all trades, but the master of none. That's kind of how I felt in school. Like, I got A's, I got B's, but I wasn't necessarily great at anything. I wasn't good at math to the point where I was like, oh, I'll just go in a field that has a lot of math. In fact, I started realizing in grade 10, 11, 12 that, you know, this harder stuff, it's pretty hard. And I started thinking, or rather believing, that I, in fact, am not good at math. So I kind of threw all careers that involved math out the window. Science-wise, I also struggled with that. I was not a big fan of memorization, so biology got thrown out the window. Physics, in a lot of ways, I feel like requires the same mental aptitude as... Okay, ignore the fact that I mispronounce things sometimes. I have a little bit of a list, but anyways. It requires that same mental thing, so I kind of threw physics out the window. I gave it a shot, but I was pretty bad at it. And then... just trying to think of like the other main courses. Like, I was pretty athletic, but not like, hey, I'm going to go and become a pro athlete. That was definitely a dream when I was younger, which is something I'll probably mention again later. But yeah, out of high school, I really didn't have job or even, I guess you could say, dream prospects in terms of what I wanted to do. Through high school, if anyone ever asked me, I always thought I would just say that I'm probably going to do something on computer, which still might end up being true, but it's really broad because I just didn't know what I was going to do. I knew I liked doing things on computer, and then I started doing things like coding, and I started doing things like game design, and I realized, damn, that is also very difficult. And that really left me questioning things. Where does that leave a guy like me? And I didn't even mention the worst part, which was I was scared of sharp tools. I didn't trust myself with them. And that kind of throws a lot of trades and things of that nature out the window. Trades are a good backup. I feel like when you don't necessarily succeed, or not succeed, that's not a good way to word it, but when you're not the best at other school subjects, it pays well, it's pretty reliable. And when you throw that out the window and not even give it a shot, like you're really shooting yourself in the foot. That's what I came to realize. So I graduate, and that's where I stood in life. I was working at, do I want to go into specifics? I'm just going to keep things pretty broad. I worked at a retail job, just minimum wage. And, you know, it was fine. It was whatever. Obviously, I didn't want to be there long term, but it was okay, I guess. And I worked there, I want to say, for like a year. And then somewhere in the timeline, I met my girlfriend, and then we ended up moving in together. Rather, I moved in with her in her family's house because she had a basement suite all to herself. And, you know, that's obviously a huge blessing. It gives me a lot of independence and gives me that sense of being an adult. Rent's really cheap. I'm only paying $250. Like, there's a lot of things to be very grateful and happy for in my current situation. But even so, it doesn't eliminate anxiety. It doesn't eliminate depression at times. And I want to be careful using that word because I've never been technically diagnosed with it, but I've gone to therapy. I've had my fair share of problems. I don't know how deep I'll get into that in that video, but hopefully I'll make more content down the road and maybe we'll talk about things like that. But yeah, that's where I kind of was. Age 21-ish, still in the same position. And again, I had this thought coming into my head. What is life? Or not what is life? I rather was feeling like I was kind of figuring it out. I was like, this is what life is. And it kind of sucks. You go to work or a job, or at a job rather, that you don't really want to be at. Depending on your situation, you might not be with people that you enjoy being around, and you might not be appreciated. I know this is very common, and this is a feeling I definitely had at the place I was working. And all you really know is this isn't good enough, and I don't want to accept this. So I go on to try and chase my dreams because I was really into, I guess you could say, self-help, self-improvement, and that kind of led me into this mindset, I guess you could say, of, man, I really don't want to be that old guy who had regrets. And the only one that I could think of knocking off my list of regrets would be to try and give YouTube a shot. So I gave it a good shot for a couple months, and I basically tried to put all my effort towards it. And I realized, you know, YouTube, streaming, all that stuff, it's not as easy as it seems. It is. I'm not even going to get into that conversation of luck, skill, whatever. It's just not easy. Okay, that's why I learned. And that left me in, again, a situation where I was like, what do I do with this? I don't know what to do. And I ended up getting into some riskier things like day trading, and I got burnt, and I learned some hard lessons there. And, you know, 2-3 years after graduation, I'm basically in the same spot. And I don't know if it was a day specifically that I can think of, but I was like, you know, things gotta change. They do. I'm not happy. I would say I was pretty depressed. And one thing I knew was, since I was unemployed at the time, I needed a job. And I knew that was the first step of getting me anywhere. So I was applying. And unfortunately here in Canada, the job market was a little bit cooked. And despite applying everywhere and anywhere, including literally any place you can think of, McDonald's to, I don't know, ice cream shops, whatever, or I guess it's frozen yogurt. Okay, I was applying everywhere. I just couldn't get a job. It was frustrating. I kind of skipped the timeline here. I guess that's what happens when you're doing things raw. But before this, hopefully I haven't lost you too much, I did actually end up applying to school. And throughout this entire time of being graduated, I was always looking at school. I really wanted to go, as it would really take a lot of pressure off of me if I was even just in school, even if it didn't lead anywhere, just from like my mom, you know, seeing her and being asked, you know, what are the plans? What are you up to? Things like that. Like it's stressful, and I didn't like how it was affecting my relationship with her, where I kind of low-key didn't want to be around her just because I knew the question would come up, and it was a little bit uncomfortable. So after a long time of looking, and oh my god, now I think of another thing I just completely skipped. I did end up doing a month of construction. I did a month of construction. My girlfriend's dad works in construction. I guess he's like a foreman, not really foreman, but he has a pretty good pull in his industry. So he was able to give me a job, and I was able to try it out for a bit. And, you know, it was a bit scary, to be honest, going into it. I was nervous. I had never really used tools, and it was an environment that I just never really saw myself in. So it did kind of feel like, or rather I felt a little bit like a poser going into it, but, you know, I was motivated to make things better. And I did feel like as long as I was trying, then I could try and just be happy with that. So yeah, I went to construction, and that led to me having to confront a whole other fear, which was I was working with heights. I was working in a lift, and it is very liberating getting over a fear. I had never really experienced that before, but I was pretty damn afraid of heights, and I was kind of surprised how quick I got over it when I had the proper motivation, or rather, it's not even really motivation. It's like I had to make things work. I couldn't get a job anywhere else, and I just was determined to really give it my all. Unfortunately, that story doesn't really have the happiest of endings. It was going pretty well again for a month, and then this other guy comes in and starts working at the company, and working with him really just kind of made me feel dumb and out of place, and I was having a lot of negative thoughts, and I was just dreading every second that I was there, and it became a little bit of an ugly situation for me. But what I did take out of it is I can do a lot more things than I thought if I just give it a shot, like being able to do trades. And I now knew that, or rather, I believe that I can do a trade, and I could go to school to do a trade. And I realized, you know, maybe it's not the most fun thing, but, you know, it pays well, it's stable, and those are some of the things I value. I want to have a family in the future. I want to be able to support myself. I want to be able to be proud. And I think that's a key in terms of just getting yourself to do things. You really got to like dig deep and look at the roots and figure out your why. And my why was I want to be proud, and I want to be able to have a family. So I ended up actually signing up for a trade school, and I'm going to be going into a trade. I tried to get straight into it because I know you sometimes can, but like I said, the job market's a little bit cooked, and despite knowing someone in the market, he couldn't even get me a job in it. So I mean, the choice was clear. I just got to go to school, and I haven't started that yet. That's going to come in pretty quick here. We're in October, and I think it starts in, well, I'm waitlisted, so I actually don't know when it's going to start, but I possibly could be starting in January. And, you know, that's its whole own thing of anxieties, and will I be able to get through it? I have some confidence issues sometimes in terms of my learning. In high school, dealt with a lot of anxiety, made learning really difficult for me. And I think the biggest thing I'm scared of with going back to school is I feel like I've come a long way since high school, and I'm afraid that I'm going to start resorting back to some of the ways I was in terms of being too afraid to talk to teachers when I was in high school. So I obviously had troubles learning because I wasn't using the resource that was teachers, being too afraid to speak up. And getting that anxiety again about whether or not I'll be able to learn topics and be able to pass the classes and all of that stuff. Trades, I know it's going to be pretty difficult, but compared to other schooling, I think people would probably say it's on the easier side. Again, I'm keeping things pretty broad. I'm not exactly saying what one I'm going into. I want to try to stay a little bit anonymous with this channel. Obviously, I'm already out there on the internet, so I might get linked at some point. It is what it is. But at least in this beginning portion, I do want to stay a bit anonymous. So yeah, that's the plan. Go to school. I guess the thing you're probably thinking is, how does this all relate to the question? Well, or not the question, but you know, the overall topic. And it doesn't. No, it does. Not wanting to play the game is life, or the game of life, right? That's a big part of life, is doing these things, going to school, getting a job, doing these things, right? And even with this newfound optimism and hope in this career path, I do sometimes still wonder, like, even if I pass, even if I'm getting good pay, will I be happy? You know, currently I am fully employed. I'm working full-time, 40 hours a week. It's a good position. I'm a lot happier at my current position. The people there are all great, and it really is a game changer, just liking the owners, liking your manager, and it just makes work so much more bearable. I never thought that I could go into a minimum wage job and not dread my next shift. Like, obviously, yeah, like I want to sleep in. I wish I could sleep in. I wish I could just play video games instead. It could be a little boring at the job sometimes, but again, it's a pretty good situation. So yeah, working full time, try and get money for school. And the one thing that I am dealing with now that will still be the same in the future is this whole concept of working for the weekend. You know, you work 5 days a week, you get 2 days off, or maybe you work 4 and you get 3. I know that's kind of a new thing coming in, but I'm not a big fan of it. The concept does give me a bit of anxiety, like spending, well, what is 5 out of 7? See, this is the math thing. What is that percentage? You know, I don't want to throw away 5 out of 7 days of my week just hoping or trying to get to those last 2 as fast as I can. Especially when those 2 days go so damn fast. Like, it's actually crazy. Again, I try not to dwell on these things, but my weekends, they feel so short, and it's kind of scary, but it's a taste of what my life is going to be like working a full-time position, possibly in trades. Now, obviously, there's going to be a few differences. First, I'll be getting paid a lot better, and that will probably make me a lot happier. Or maybe it won't. You know, that's a whole other conversation. But I think I'll be more proud and feel better about being paid a good wage. And I'm also going to be working earlier hours. I work kind of like a midday shift right now, which I actually thought I didn't like, but then at this job, like, I've actually enjoyed it. I can stay up late, wake up a little late, so it's been nice. Again, I'm kind of, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm rambling a little bit. I'll try to get back at this, but yeah, sorry. I guess that's the one I'm going to do. I kind of got lost a little bit there, but yeah, working to the weekend, not really my favorite concept. Navigating that, being okay with that, brings us into conversations about being grateful, about optimism, pessimism, you know, glass half full. Do I only have 2 days off, or am I lucky to even have 2 days off? You know, I've realized as I've gotten older just how much of life is perspective. Like, it's actually insane. Happiness, all that stuff, I would pretty much say with full confidence is all just linked to perspective, and having that choice in perspective, no matter where you end up, whether you do end up, you know, you peaked at working at a, let's just say, a Walmart, a McDonald's, or maybe you end up getting a job that's making over 100K, or you're making millions of dollars, whatever it is. There is an element of, if that is truly your peak, trying to accept that and find things to be grateful for, things to be happy for. And I'm just trying to think, oh my god, this is the issue. Trying to bring it back to the main topic here. Not wanting to play the game. What do you do with that? What do you do with that? What do you do when you don't want to work 5 days a week and work just to the weekend? What do you do? You know, just accept it. It just kind of is what it is. Seems like that kind of is what you got to do. I think there are things that make that reality easier to accept. I think when you are less involved in hobbies and things that you are progressing towards, you might get more fixated on this. This is why I personally always have tried to do YouTube, even if I'm doing school, even if I'm doing work. I always want to do this in some aspect, have something to work towards. I think it's important to have these hobbies and things that you're always working towards, looking forward to. Otherwise, I think you're just going to be hit with some depression. And I honestly have a friend who, you know, is making very good money. He's my age and he's already making over $100,000 a year or very close to it. And he seems a bit depressed. And I think it really just shows that life is definitely not all about money. And you really gotta focus on perspective and changing your perspective. So, God, I don't even know if I covered everything I want to cover. I think that was a bit more for a ramble sesh, but I want to try upload it and just go with it either way. Again, I'll just say the topic. Do you ever have that feeling where you don't really want to play this game? The bills, working toward the weekend, you know, all this stuff, being underappreciated, disappointed, having shame, all of these negative things, you know. And what is the answer? How do you deal with this? Well, I'm only 22. I haven't figured it out yet, but I think if I had to say so, at least for the time being, perspective, having goals, having things you're progressing towards. I think this is where family can be really big, not just in terms of having a support system to make sure you're doing okay, but in terms of building your own and maybe having a family of your own. I mean, that goes on pretty much until you die. I mean, if you have a kid, as long as your kid's alive, you have something to live for, right? So I guess those are the main things. I didn't even talk. I do have some things listed. I swear I didn't lie about that. I guess I'll mention them real quick. I have passion listed. I guess I kind of mentioned passion already in terms of having something to progress towards, something you want to do, hobbies, whatnot, but also religion. You know, I'm not going to get too deep into religion. You know, it's up to you at the end of the day. But I know religion could be a big game changer for a lot of people. So something to consider. Something to consider for sure. You know, if you still have dreams that are fairly realistic, I think go for it. Don't do it full time. Don't. It's just usually not a good idea. Do it on the side if you can. Like going full time after YouTube, like, yeah, it's like a cool idea, but like, you know, it was kind of stupid. Like obviously it wasn't the best thing I could have done there as I die. Anyways, back at it. Oh my god. Anyways, back at it. Cut number 3. Yeah, if you have a dream, go for it. Like I said, don't do it full time. Go at it part time if you can, you know, here and there. Do what you can. And I would say, you know, keep it a little bit realistic. Like for me, I mean, when I was a kid, I thought I was going to be an athlete. I thought I was going to play in the NHL. And then I was 12 years old and I had never even played ice hockey. So that was a bit of a problem. That was a bit of a, oh no, I don't think that's going to happen. And now I'm 22. And for some reason, it's kind of sad. I do still have like literal dreams of me like playing ice hockey and things like that. And when I wake up, I do feel a little bit depressed. The fact that I can't really pursue that dream. I could do it for fun, obviously, but you know, is it realistic to start training even part-time to try and become an NHL player now at 22? No, and I'm not that delusional, but yeah, try to keep it a little bit realistic. I don't think there'd be too many situations like that where you're just fully cooked. Usually it's not too late to start. I would say that is actually one, unfortunately, situation where the odds of me being able to succeed is very slim. But hey, maybe it's possible, okay? Who knows? Besides that, just looking at my notes, I think I basically went over everything I wanted to talk about in this video. Again, Don't give me too hard of a time. I don't know how many people will even end up seeing this, but yeah, it was my first attempt at a video like this, and I'm just happy I got to the end because my god, I've just had so many different takes, or well, not literal takes, but like, you know, I stopped and started the recording a million times. Anyways, if you found this video at all insightful or helpful, I would appreciate if you liked it so that other people can hopefully see it and feel the same way, and hopefully it can affect some people's lives positively. Oh my god. But yeah, also hit subscribe. I plan to make more videos, and hopefully they'll be better because, you know, this is number one. And I guess my last kind of outro words of advice, words of brilliance is give things a shot, get the ball rolling, even if the first, you know, little push off to get the ball rolling is a little bit pathetic or a little bit, you know, cringy. Just get it rolling, and hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye bye.